Hello, everybody, and welcome to a special World Series edition of the Full Count MLB Sports Betting Show presented to you by SportsMemo. My name is Eric Pauly, and I am joined with JM Sports and Dan Kaiser of SportsMemo.com. Gentlemen, we have made it. It's been a long season. I want to thank all of the viewers for sticking by us for all 162 plus games this year. We have a World Series preview for the game that kicks off, obviously, in Houston tomorrow. Jeff, we'll start with you. How are you doing today?
Good. Yeah, I can't complain. Like you said, it's been a long MLB season. It's been a good MLB season, and unfortunately, my Guardians had that early departure. But hey, I'm excited for this World Series, no question.
It should certainly be a good one. Our other guests for today, Dan Kaiser, SportsMemo.com. Dan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. The great thing about living in Michigan, you don't really have a favorite team, so you get to float around. So,
All for the love of the game. I absolutely love to hear that. We're going to get right into it. We're going to discuss game one toward the tail end, but for starters, we're going to just go over the World Series in general and what to expect. Of course, representing the American League, the number one seeded Houston Astros, representing the National League, the number 6 and final team to make the postseason in the National League, the Philadelphia Phillies, headed to Houston for this potential 7-game series. To win the World Series, the Philadelphia Phillies are underdogs at around plus 160, depending where you're looking at those odds. The Houston Astros around minus 180 to even minus 195, depending on where you're looking. Of course, meaning the Astros are the favorite in the World Series. There's a lot of storylines, a lot of things to go into. Of course, both of these teams are riding as high as you possibly could, especially for Houston. 7 straight victories in the postseason to get to this point. The Philadelphia Phillies, 9-2, so not too bad themselves. We're going to quickly go and just discuss what we are looking for in this series and also give a little bit of intel onto who we like to win the World Series. Then we will go into game one and slightly into game two because those two pitching matchups have been solidified for the most part. Of course, things can change. Doubt anything changes for tomorrow's game. We'll see for game two. Jeff, we'll start with you. General synopsis, what are you interested in seeing this World Series? And who you taking in how many games?
Yeah, it's exciting. We said it a little bit before, actually, we came on air, but it's definitely impressive. There's something to be said about these Phillies team that finished, you said it's 6th in the NL, but they finished 3rd in their own division. So there are 2 teams in their division that were quote unquote better than them. Obviously, depending on your standards, by rest, they were better than them, but the Phillies have thus made it farther. But you have the 2 teams with the 2 of the top 3 batting averages on the year. Philly ended the year 2nd, batting .237, and Houston was right behind them as a team in 3rd, batting .227. I think Houston has the pitching edge, which is definitely going to be the deciding factor in this game. I think they're a little more proven. Houston as a whole has proven that they're a little more of a consistent team. We said that a little bit before. The ups and downs, the peaks and valleys of the season for Philly is not something that Houston really had to deal with as much. And even with Jose Altuve struggling, they have Alex Bregman and Yuli Gurriel, who have been 2 of the hottest hitters. So those 2 are definitely ones I'm keeping an eye on too. Maybe looking at some World Series props moving forward on some of those guys. But the pitching staff of Houston is unbelievable. I mean, you can go on with a list. You got Verlander, Valdez, McCullers, Javier Urquidy hasn't even pitched in the postseason yet. Luis Garcia, and then their bullpen goes on too. Presley, Neris, Smith, Brown, Abreu, Stank, Montero. They have names on names going through their pitching lineup. Verlander is the only one who has a postseason ERA over 2.5. His is like 6-something after that game against Seattle. But I think the pitching staff is the difference in this one. Their bullpen had the best ERA in the regular season out of any team. And they've only allowed 3 earned runs in their 7 games this postseason. So a combined bullpen ERA under 1.0. So I actually gave it out on Sports Memo today. Yes, Tuesday, excuse me. That if you can take Houston minus a game and a half and get them plus money. So I think that might be the way to go on this one. I think Philly's got a shot to take a game at home. But that puts me Houston 5, I guess would be my prediction. I think it's possible that they could sweep through it, but if I'm not mistaken, there's only been 1 or 2 teams that have ever swept all the way through the playoffs. So I'll give Philly a game at home, but I'm definitely leaning Houston for this series.
Jeff liking the favorite there coming out of the American League. I mean, it's no secret why. Jeff mentioned a bunch of statistics, and if you have followed, of course, this show and just the MLB in general all season long, you know that the Astros have solidified themselves all throughout the course of the season as the best team, bar none, in the American League. Now they have a chance to prove it and win a World Series. Something Jeff mentioned is that Altuve is a little bit streaky, but they're getting such great production out of this rookie, Jeremy Pena, the rookie shortstop. National League, NLCS MVP. Jeff, any shot he repeats his World Series MVP? Or if you have the Astros in 5, like you're saying, Astros to win, who will take that MVP award when Houston wins?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's possible. I think the odds are probably more with one of the offensive players that has done this before and has been on this stage and this level before. But, I probably wouldn't have said going into it that Pena had, as well as he's been playing, I probably wouldn't have said he had much of a shot to win the MVP going into the last series, just playing on this stage as a rookie. So anything is possible, but I'm probably looking Gurriel if you're putting me out for a name, unless there's a shutdown pitcher, unless Verlander can turn things around. I'm probably leaning Gurriel if I'm going for an MVP.
Going for an MVP, going Gurriel. Of course, there are so many names on that Houston roster that you could choose. Gurriel, Alvarez, Bregman, Pena. Who knows? Even Kyle Tucker can get hot. You can then go to the pitching staff if Verlander, Valdez pitch multiple games in this series and do fantastic work. Their names will certainly be in that mix, and that's before you even think about the possibility of the Philadelphia Phillies pulling off an upset and having one of their guys win that award. So we have Jeff looking Houston -1.5. If you had to throw a name out there, Yuli Gurriel to be the World Series MVP. A lot of this will come down to, of course, how the starters not named Justin Verlander, all the starters besides the one named Justin Verlander, who's actually struggled the most out of the entire Astros pitching staff, which, as we were talking about before the show, is something it's true. Just look at the statistics, but you wouldn't expect, of course, as you would think Old Reliable was Old Reliable when it comes to the postseason and World Series. That has not been the case so far. We're going to go to you, Dan. We have Jeff -1.5. He thinks that that's a better angle than taking the series price straight because, of course, it is a little pricey there, but certainly can be value in that spot. Dan, talk to me. What are you excited for in this World Series? How do you think it's going to play out?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I always like following Jeff because he throws out all the statistics, and I can just come in with a little bit of nuance and just a little different take on things, which makes it easier for me. But no, I kind of look at this kind of like destiny versus dynasty. I mean, the Phillies, the team of destiny, as you guys have been saying, that their last team in the playoffs, they had to go on the road against the Central winning Cardinals, then go and beat the defending champs, and take on the Dodger killers and the Padres, and they kind of made it look easy. The Padres was a little bit tough, and that's kind of what I look in this game. The Padres, they had to come back in a couple of games against the Padres, and I just don't know if this Houston staff will give them a chance to come back if they get down early. I look at the Phillies have 2 pitchers that can match up with the Astros staff, Wheeler and Nola. And, I think if their bats continue to hit like they did in the last series, they do have a slugger's chance. But I think that's it. It's just a slugger's chance. Yeah, I'm not enamored with their pen. And in all honesty, I know Verlander hasn't been great in the playoffs, but a lot of that came with the Tigers. But, I think they need to win this game. I think the Phillies, for them to have a chance in this series, they need to beat Verlander. For one, just the idea of beating Verlander, and 2, they need to put some pressure on the Astros. The Astros haven't seen any pressure in the playoffs, and as you guys are saying, they've done this all without Altuve doing anything so far. And then that's kind of the scary part with this Astros team. It's other guys step up. Tucker steps up. As you guys mentioned, Pena. I think the Astros fans are saying, Carlos who? They let him go, and they let him go because they had faith in this kid, and he's showing it. And as Jeff said, this bullpen is just unhittable. They got 6 guys that can throw mid 90s to high 90s, low. I think the relievers are like 1 ERA or less in the playoffs. And what Houston is kind of this team that if they win this series, they've been to 4 World Series in the last 6 years. They would have won 2. In modern day baseball, you can kind of consider them a mini dynasty. And I just think they have the experience, and I just think they have more in pitching. And usually in World Series like this, it takes pitching. So I like Houston. I like, to be honest, I like them. I like them. I've already laid the minus 195. I got like a minus 185. But Warren Buffett, he never shies away of spending money to make money, and I just think this is a spot that the Astros are destined to win.
Value is certainly value. If you think this price should be closer to minus 225 and you're getting it at minus 185, minus 195, certainly makes sense to go and take that line. But I think you make a couple of really great points, Dan, on this team. They're so loaded from top to bottom. That offensive team, that of course that lineup, that pitching staff is really just immaculate. Dan, if you had to choose a player out of a hat, of course not an official player or anything, talk to me. Who do you think would win the MVP award for the World Series if the Houston Astros pull off this win?
I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to take Pena. I just like how he stepped up in so far in the playoffs, and I don't know, the kid's just got something going for him. I think no spot's too big for him, and I think he's just gonna. I don't know. I got a feeling. I like the odds on him, so I got a feeling he may step up and do something in this one.
Yeah, back to Carlos, who of course they let Carlos Correa leave in free agency to the Twins. Didn't necessarily work out that great for Minnesota as well. Even who knows where he'll be playing next season, but they have clearly something in Jeremy Pena. The way he has stepped up, and what impresses me the most about him is, of course, just the basic statistics, but he looks like a seasoned veteran in the batter's box, taking pitches, fouling off tough pitches, and then not only just staying alive, but then also finding his pitch, putting it into the outfield, and getting on base. It's really been great. But I understand why you guys love the Astros and think they're going to win the World Series. I have no affiliation to either team. Like you, Dan, though I'm a New Yorker, I don't side with the Mets, the Yankees. I just love the sport of baseball. I have to go with the Philadelphia Phillies to win the World Series. Not necessarily even from like a value perspective. Of course, I love the fact that I'm betting on an underdog, but just the way that this team is constructed and how well that they can hit. Given that Justin Verlander and our producer Chris gave us this nugget before the show, 0-6 in his World Series starts to date. As Jeff mentioned, his ERA is upwards of 6 in whether it be the playoffs or just the World Series. Which was that, Jeff? In all the playoffs or solely in the World Series?
Yeah, the whole postseason this year.
In the whole postseason this season, which is ridiculous. If the Philadelphia Phillies can get on top of Verlander and avoid having to face that bullpen when down 1 or 2 runs in the later innings of the game, and then get on Verlander early and steal game 1. Game 2 with Framber Valdez, who of course has been fantastic this season. He is a lefty, and the Phillies absolutely mash lefties. They did it all year long. So that also could be a potential favorable matchup for Philly. I'm not going out on a limb and saying that they're going to win back-to-back and they're going to be going home with a 2-0 lead, but it's also not the most far-fetched thing to say that they could win 2 games, considering how Verlander has pitched in the World Series in his career and this postseason, and their ability to hit lefties. And I really just love this lineup. I mean, what Bryce Harper has done, of course, the 2-time MVP, but when he got injured this season, when he came back, he wasn't fully at 100%, but his ability to flick that switch, turn it back on, and put together a postseason of a lifetime right now in front of our eyes, I don't think he's slowing down anytime soon. If he gets into a slump of sorts, I just don't see it happening. But of course, there are serious concerns with Philadelphia, their bullpen. So again, if the Phillies have a 3-1 lead heading into the 7th, 8th, or 9th, that is certainly no lock for the Philadelphia Phillies to win that baseball game. And also their defense. Houston's going to put the ball in play. They're going to put pressure on Philadelphia. And if they are incapable of putting routine ground balls into outs, you got to get 27 of those. They also might struggle. So Jeff and Dan going with the Houston Astros. I'm going with the Phillies, and I'll take the basic pick of Mr. Bryce Harper being the MVP. But I also could certainly see Nola or Wheeler taking that MVP award, especially if they, of course, have a great game one. But I'm sure they're going to pitch at least one more time in this postseason. So again, maybe some Madison Bumgarner vibes. Of course, that was when he had those runs; they were fantastic. But in the sense that if one of them is able to pitch multiple starts as well as even some relief innings and be completely shut down, there's no reason why one of those two can get the award. Of course, it's hard to shut down the Astros. So we're going to take a very brief dive into game one. We have a full count show tomorrow that will be hosted by our very own Jeff Michaels here, and they're going to break down game one in full so we can keep this at a pretty general high level. But with the Philadelphia Phillies going against Houston Astros, Justin Verlander facing Aaron Nola, the minus 170 for the Phillies, over under 6.5. Jeff, start with you. Verlander, does he bounce back, or is he going to stay true to his not so great postseason form?
Sorry. I think I don't think that it was. I think it was a one-time issue. He made 2 starts this postseason. The bad one was against Seattle, which is where he allowed all his earned runs. He's been I shouldn't say historically. This season, he's made more than one bad start against the Mariners. So I think there is something to be said that this isn't his first bad start against Seattle. I don't think it was solely because he's having postseason jitters. Obviously he's been here a time or two. And I think the other thing that stands out to me for game one is on the season, Philly's just 1 game over 500 away from home this year. And Houston has dominated their own ballpark. So I do still give Verlander the edge in this one and go in game one. And as you guys said, I believe you mentioned that, we know Philly can put up runs, but Houston has shown in the last series and actually against Seattle too, that they can fight back from a deficit. If the, opponent can take the lead, Seattle led that year. Seattle led multiple games in that series at some point, as well as the Yankees, and yet they didn't lose a game. And with that being said, they didn't lose a Verlander start either, regardless of his ERA. So I do still give them a little bit in the edge in game one, but obviously, they've won 11 out of their last 12 games going back to the regular season. But Philly does have bats that can make anything happen. So I'm leaning Houston, but there's always that chance for another bad start.
Always that chance. Of course, we saw that start to the Mariners game where the Houston Astros made an incredible comeback to win that baseball game. So Houston, Jeff, looking at the series and game one. Dan, let's go to you. You have the Astros to win the series. You think they get off on the right foot tomorrow?
Yeah, I guess as Jeff was pointing out about Verlander, yeah, he has struggled this season, surprisingly, against Seattle. And I think our good friend Joe D'Amico was hoping that that Seattle Verlander would show up in New York, and he came in and shut down, struck out 11 Yankees after a little rough start in the first inning. Yeah, I think this game's going to come down to a lot with Verlander early. If they can get to him early, they may have a chance. But you got Verlander's a veteran; he's been here before, and now he's got the arm of like a 25-year-old after he's got that after he went through that surgery. So this guy could be pitching for the next 5-10 years. But to be honest, in this game, I'm looking at 2 bets in this one. I'm looking at Phillies first 5 in Astros game. I think they may get to them early, but I have no faith in this Phillies pen. I think they could get an early lead, 1-0, 2-0 maybe, but I like the Astros to come back late. So that's what I'd be looking. Take the Phillies first 5 and then the Astros for the game.
Phillies first 5 Astros game. I think that's I actually love that angle, considering, again, some of Verlander's struggles, which you could amount to facing Seattle. Is it actually kind of some postseason demons? Though, as you mentioned, he did have a great start against the Yankees. But then considering the Phillies bullpen being so weak and this Astros having this never say die mentality, which it's crazy to say for a team that's 100+ winner, clearly the best team in the American League. Like Dan said, I love dynasty versus destiny. This team is in the midst of a dynasty, whether we want to admit it or not, because of the scandals and whatnot. But of course, we could talk about that for a whole other segment on the show. But I I'm not going to go in, out of limb. This is nothing that's going to be a client play or anything. I'm rolling with the Phils. I'm rolling with the Phils. This is just kind of definitely head over heart. I'm not putting out Phillies for the series. I'm still debating for this first game. I don't love it as much as I do potentially love Philly, depending on how they play in game one. In game two, going against a lefty. Again, Valdez fantastic this season. Wheeler done well this season, so it's going to be in for a fantastic game, but we'll get more clarity on the odds on game two, surely after game one is finalized. But I'd love to thank everybody again for not only watching this show, but for sticking with us for the entire season. I know it's a long one. MLB is a marathon and not a sprint, and we have made it close to the end. Not sure how many more full counts are on tap, but I know we have the show tomorrow for game one. Game three won't be until Monday, so I would assume we have a little something scheduled. Our producer, Chris, will get that content scheduled for us there. But on behalf of myself, Jeff Michaels, Dan Kaiser, our producer, Chris, and the rest of the Sports Memo team, thank you for your time. Hit the like button, subscribe, and give us your best comments for the day. And we're very much looking forward to seeing you tomorrow for breaking down game one of the series. Thank you, guys. Have a great night.
Thanks.